Hi, welcome to Jeremy's Tech Channel, and today we're going to take a look at open source drivers for graphics cards and proprietary drivers for graphics cards. What's the deal? You've probably heard about the hackers who grabbed Nvidia's proprietary code and put it out there. Taking a look at some of these articles here, it's pretty interesting. The hackers were asking for Nvidia to open up the drivers for open source code and for people to be able to use them. This is not going to be a discussion today for whether everything should be open source or whether a company should have proprietary drivers or proprietary code. I'm not going to have that discussion today, but I do want to kind of walk through maybe some perceptions and maybe some options that are available if you do not like one or the other. For me personally, I am limited, okay? I bought my Dell G15 laptop, which I absolutely adore. I think it's a wonderful piece of hardware. And it does have an Nvidia graphics card in it. The reason why I chose it was I got a killer deal on it. And two, at the time, and I still do, I used DaVinci Resolve, and what I read and understood is that it played nice with the Nvidia proprietary drivers. And I'm like, cool, no problem, I'll do that. There is constraints with that, just thinking that this is the only way to make something work. And in one sense, I just want it to work and go and make myself happy to work and make things happen. I'm able to game quite well on this RTX 3060. I'm able to render video quickly. Guys, I'm rendering video super quick. The RTX 3060 for rendering video it's a pretty great card for that. And I'm just talking about the crunching numbers, the actual performance for me, the real world performance that I'm experiencing. I render out a 25 minute video in about 2 minutes. I love it. That's great, right? As I'm getting more comfortable in the Linux space and the free and open source space, which I include Linux in, I have noticed there's a lot of hate for Nvidia. And it seems like it's, pretty warranted. I know that Intel has open source drivers and open source code. I know that AMD has open source drivers and open source code. My understanding is in some ways, the AMD open source drivers are, performing just as well or better than the proprietary drivers that were given for those cards. I go here to Intel's open source Linux driver now offers Vulkan ANV ray tracing support. They're coming out with a new graphics card. Well, it looks pretty cool. I don't know anyone that has it directly yet. I guess they're shipping it out with laptops first, and then they're going to ship out the desktop ones after that. Already having Linux support for the Intel Arc architecture, the open source Linux driver. I know they already have Intel integrated graphics going on, and so they need the drivers, and they already provide those, and it works great. And I looked and I was like, okay, well, is there something open source for Nvidia? Just curious. And there is. There is this Nouveau accelerated open source driver for Nvidia cards, and it aims to build high quality free Libre software drivers for Nvidia cards. Okay. I can't use this for DaVinci Resolve. I have to use proprietary drivers, and I don't like that. That is not Nouveau's fault. That is a proprietary piece of software that only wants to work with proprietary drivers. They can do what they want, no problem there. But I see here, after that hacking happened, Nvidia open source Linux kernel graphics driver appears. This was written April 8th, so pretty recent here. Yesterday, Nvidia published a new Jetson L4T release, providing the latest sample root file system based on Ubuntu 20.04 LTS and using the Linux 5.10 kernel. Along with that is their public sources used for generating the build. Okay, cool. But before getting too excited, at least for now, this kernel driver appears to be limited to their Tegra graphics hardware support. Trying to load this module for desktop Nvidia graphics currently results in errors. But when looking at the driver sources, there are references to many desktop GPUs and others outside of the Tegra context. Maybe Nvidia's working. Maybe the hackers fast forwarded some of that source code being open. In one sense for me, and I bet for some of you, I just want my stuff to work. I just want my stuff to work. I want it to work well. I want it to work at its greatest capacity. For some of you, open source means a lot to you. Free and open source is an actual movement that is happening and matters, okay? Having open source drivers for the hardware that you have is important, right? Free and open source software is important. I definitely understand that. But I wonder, what would our viewpoint of Nvidia be if they already gave the code out for open source to be used and for developers to use that code? I wonder what the general sense and understanding of what Nvidia is. Now, Nvidia actually has a large market share of devices. So a lot of people who may consider moving to Linux are going to have to deal with Nvidia drivers. Maybe if I was ready to jump ship and move to Kdenlive, I would have maybe looked for an AMD card for me to be able to run them. Maybe these new Intel Arc GPUs are going to be killer, and my next computer I'm going to be able to use the Intel Arc GPUs. I don't know, but there are a lot of computers that use the Nvidia GPUs. I keep thinking about community aspects of Linux, and I just keep thinking that communities are going to be better when there are more people available to help, whether it's using the systems, whether it's communicating bugs, whether it's people developing source code, developing these applications, developing these operating systems and window managers and desktop environments. And one of those pieces here, let's say you've gone through, you've read some books, you've read some things, and you've bought into the free and open source movement, and you go, I am going to install Linux on my computer. And you don't have all of this money to just go out and buy a new device. You've got what you got. And so you decide, all right, boom, I'm going to be a free and open source person, and you have an Nvidia graphics card. And I think there are some wireless cards that have proprietary drivers only as well. I think that's causing issues for some people trying to get Linux working. And I know that, look, if you're comfortable enough to take off the back of your laptop or whatever, replacing those wireless cards is not going to be that difficult. But many people aren't going to feel comfortable with that. Many people just want to install something. This will be their first walkthrough. They probably got suggested Ubuntu or Pop! OS or something like that. They put it in. At least Pop! OS has the option up front, if they even know what Nvidia proprietary graphics drivers are. There's a good chance that they don't even know what that means. So they decide to take the hop and the movement, and they install Ubuntu, and they want to run a game, or they want to run Kdenlive, or they want to run something, and there's no graphics drivers installed, and they can't work with it. And that's why open source drivers are going to be very important, because distributions are able to ship easily with open source drivers. Some of them in their ideals, they don't want to ship with proprietary drivers. And that's okay too, right? But I just think people are going to have these opportunities to install this stuff, and they decide, I'm going to jump ship, I'm going to install Linux, or I'm going to install FreeBSD, and they get going, and now they don't have a proper driver for their Nvidia graphics card. What's going to happen? Oh, my wireless doesn't work, my graphics doesn't work, Linux is junk. I'm just going to take my ball and I'm going to go home, and I'm going to go back to Windows, or I guess I'm going to have to save up and buy a Mac. You think that's crazy talk, but it's not. When it comes to computing, they want it the way it's been, but they want new features. They want things the way they want them, but they don't even know what they really want. And then when they try something new and they click around and it doesn't work the way they want, when they start clicking around, they just go, I'm done, I'm walking away. I hope that Nvidia decides to work towards open source coding their drivers more openly and more freely, because y'all, there are some amazing developers in the Linux and BSD space. This free and open source space, I just keep finding cool applications and programs and things that these people are cool, man. If you know of a program or an application that I should be looking at, send me a comment in this video and let me know. Some of you are going to comment on this video about how much you hate Nvidia. I get it. Some of you are going to be understanding of why they want their drivers to be proprietary. I get it. I'm just saying, I hope they at least open up the code and allow for users to develop open source drivers. If they want to keep their proprietary drivers and make that work for them, that's fine too. Let them do them. I get it. Anyways, random rant again today. And I guess there wasn't even a rant. And now I'm starting to piece together these pieces of hardware and how we use them. Whether it's a wireless card, whether it's an NVMe drive, whether it's a graphics card, how are we able to use them and take advantage of them to their fullest extent? Thanks, guys. See you later.